Yeah, that's right. So it was a Saturday morning out in Coslow and just ducked in for an early morning swim and tried body, just swam onto a wave to body surf a wave, which just dumped and I went head first into the sand. So I was knocked unconscious on impact and when I came to, initially just felt sort of dizzy and dazed, like you do when you get tumbled by a wave, and then tried swimming to the surface. And at that stage, my arms were paralysed and I couldn't move my arms. So it was a pretty scary time. And thankfully, there were two volunteer surf lifesavers from the Cottesloe Surf Lifesaving Club who were on the beach and saw what was happening and came and applied all the correct spinal management and first aid, got me out of the water, called an ambulance and got me to hospital. And that was where the true extent of my injuries was sort of really found out.
And that time in hospital, how long was that and what was your recovery like?
We had a number of days and initially taken to Charles Gardner Hospital in Perth, and they weren't able to treat me there, so I got an emergency transfer to Royal Perth Hospital and then had several days while a number of specialists consulted on my case, deciding on the best course of treatment. Initially, they were looking to operate, which would have meant fusing all the vertebrae in my neck, but thankfully they opted for a more conservative approach, which entailed fitting a halo brace, which was a hideous device to have to wear, and I had to wear that for 4 months and then had a neck collar for another few months before I then started into rehab and physio.
So at what point, Steve, did you decide you wanted to climb mountains in all of this?
It was actually pretty early on, so probably still when I was lying in hospital before even getting the halo brace fitted, when I was still deciding on how to treat my case, because at that point just reflecting on lying in bed strapped down, staring at the ceiling gives you a lot of time to reflect and think. And up until then, with my own life and career, I'd spent a lot of effort on my work and professional development, but in doing so, I hadn't achieved a lot of the personal goals that I would have liked to have done. So it was that time I thought, well, if I can get through this, then I'll go on and start to achieve it, go on and set some goals for my own personal ambitions.
Pretty amazing. I mean, now what you're undertaking, and can I say, it's a little bit crazy, Steve. Can you just explain exactly what Project 7 in 4 is?
Yeah, so when I always had an interest when I was younger in wanting to do some alpine climbing, and I'd had a strong background in outdoor activities and endurance sports, and particularly used to do a lot of triathlon and Ironman, but wanted to progress into and try some alpine climbing. So had a number of years now of slowly building skills and doing expeditions, and Project 7 in 4 being my end goal at the moment, which is to climb the 7 summits, being the highest mountain on each of the 7 continents in under 4 months. And if successful, that will be a new world record for the fastest to complete the 7 summits.
And where are you at the moment in that challenge?
In terms of the number of mountains, we're slightly halfway through. We've finished 4, but we've done the easy half, so we've now got the difficult half to go. So we've done all the mountains in the Southern Hemisphere and over the past 7 weeks. And Southern Hemisphere at the moment, obviously it's summer, it's warmer, so it's the preferred climbing season for a lot of those mountains. Now we're moving, and this afternoon, flying up to Russia and we'll be attempting Elbrus, and from there we'll go to Alaska and attempt Denali, so the highest in North America, and then from there we'll come straight back to Nepal and attempt Everest. So moving up with those climbs in the Northern Hemisphere, heading up into winter now.
Just trying to make it
much colder, much more difficult.
And making it harder and harder for yourself each time. How have the 4 summits so far, how's that experience been? How's the body held up?
So far, it's been amazing and gone really, really well. Everything's gone pretty well to plan, so been very fortunate. I think we've put a lot of work and a lot of training and preparation into this, so it's nice to see that it's all pretty well coming together. It's been absolutely amazing. The climbs we've done so far have been incredible. I think what's particularly enjoyable is because you're going to such different locations every time, the different scenery, different environment, different culture you experience. So obviously from Antarctica, which was incredible, just getting down to the White Continent, and then from there to South America, Tanzania, and up into the jungles of West Papua. You just see so many different things. It's really amazing.
You're on Weekends on ABC Radio. My name's Diana Darmody. My guest is Steve Plain. He suffered a severe spinal injury at a beach 4 years ago, and now he's well into a world record attempt to climb the 7 highest summits on each continent in just 4 months. On his way to his 5th summit very shortly. But you actually added another summit in as well to this, Steve. Last weekend you climbed Australia's tallest mountain in Mount Kosciuszko, but you weren't alone, were you? Who did you take with you?
No, and that's, well, so I ducked back to Australia for a week now to do the trip last weekend, but that was an event organised and supported by the Rotary Clubs of Turramurra and Cooma. And it was what they call the Kosciuszko Summit Wheelchair Challenge. So we organised and took 6 children in wheelchairs and a group of almost 100 volunteers and assistants, and all together went to the top of Kosciuszko last weekend. So that was an incredible event, and wonderful to be able to give those kids an experience and opportunity which otherwise by themselves is quite difficult. And to see the smiles on their faces and what they got out of it was a real delight.
Oh, I would have just loved to have been there to see that. Can you describe what they went through getting up the mountain and then what it was like for them at the top?
Yeah, the kids were great and had an incredible weekend. Being in wheelchairs, we had a number of assistants from our local clubs and also the SES and Rural Fire Service. So I had people helping to push and pull on the way up, and the kids all thoroughly enjoyed it, and for them to all be up on the top of Kosciuszko and to be able to actually appreciate the view from there was remarkable.
And apart from obviously what would have been extremely, I imagine, emotional and great for you personally, was it important to add Kosciuszko into this project?
For me personally, yes, because the 7 summits, being the highest on each continent, the most common definition of the for the 7 summits, the Australian continent gets expanded out to include Australasia, and so I climbed Carsten's Pyramid up in West Papua, which is almost over double the height of Kosciuszko. But being a proud Australian also, to come back home and with Kosciuszko being the highest on the Australian continent, to slot that one in there as well, while technically not part of the 7 summits, was something I desperately wanted to do as well.
So, as you mentioned, finished with the Southern Hemisphere summits and now heading to the Northern Hemisphere and to Russia, to Mount Elbrus. Is that, I hope I'm saying it correctly, the highest mountain in Europe. How are you feeling about that? What sort of challenges have you got on your horizon to conquer that one?
Feeling pretty good. It's been nice to have a week back home and recharge the batteries and get some nice home cooking again. But there's a whole new host of challenges heading up to the Northern Hemisphere now. So looking at the weather for Elbrus for the next, we'll actually be on the mountain in a couple of days. So the weather over the weekend and early next week looks reasonable, but strong winds and temperatures down to about minus 30. So we'll be facing some pretty tough conditions up there and some very cold conditions. So I do actually somewhat enjoy those challenges. So looking forward to getting up there and having a crack at it.
And is that a mountain you've climbed before?
No, and none of these 7 summits I've climbed before. So I've done a number of other practice climbs, a number of other expeditions, but prior to this project, hadn't done any of the 7 summits.
Gosh, Steve, that is amazing to literally even just think about doing this. But now that you're well into it, are you confident that you can get through these 7?
I'm fairly confident, yes. And I think, like I said, there's been a lot of training and preparation and planning that's gone into it. So, and so far that's been going incredibly well. So as long as that sort of keeps going, we'll need a bit of luck with some good weather up in some of the mountains, particularly in Denali, where it gets incredibly cold up there at this time of year. We'll need a bit of luck, but if the weather's good to us, then quietly confident that we should be able to push through in good time.
Steve Plain with us on ABC Radio. This is Weekends with Diana Darmody. We're talking about his project 7 in 4, where he is trying to break a world record for climbing the highest mountains on each continent and doing it within just 4 months, which is extraordinary in itself. But the fact that Steve suffered a severe spinal injury just 4 years ago makes it even more incredible. Elbrus, then Denali in Alaska, and you finish with just a small hill, really, in terms of Everest. I imagine that's a completely different kettle of fish to the other 7 peaks.
Absolutely, yes. And all the others, the second highest out of the 7 summits was Aconcagua, which we summited back in late January, and that was 6,900 metres. So Everest being obviously the highest in the world and at 8,848 metres. Once you start to get above 8,000 metres, or what they commonly refer to as the infamous death zone, where the air gets very thin, and it's a much different challenge once you get up to those altitudes. So Everest, compared to the rest of them, will be an entirely different challenge altogether, and something I'm really looking forward to.
And when are you hoping to be there?
We're hoping to get to base camp around mid-April, and then because it is that much higher than the rest of them, we'll take a bit more time to acclimatise to higher altitudes. So we'll do a couple of acclimatisation rotations up to progressively higher camps and come back down again. And then hoping for a summit window. Typically on Everest on the south side, it will be around early May, so probably somewhere around about the 10th of May is when we'd hope to try and be able to get a summit window to hopefully have a chance to push to the top.
And Steve, have you thought about that moment when you've climbed Everest, you've broken the world record? Do you picture yourself celebrating, or how that might feel?
To be honest, I haven't really actually thought about what it'd actually be to complete it. I think there's been so much focus and my attention has been on the challenge of doing it. I haven't actually thought how it actually feel or what we'll do once we're done. I guess with a challenge of the magnitude of this, with the 7 Summits project, to try and sort of think about the entire project in entirety is almost too big to think about. So my whole approach has been just taking it step by step, so one mountain at a time. And so my current focus is just on Elbrus, and once I finish that, I'll then shift my focus to the next one, and after that, I'll be shifting my focus to Everest. So once we're actually finished, sure it'll be amazing, and looking forward to that, but we've got to get there first.
You're raising money for Surf Lifesaving and Spinal Cure Australia. How can people find out more about getting involved in this project?
Yeah, that's right. So through this project, there's 2 causes which I'm quite passionate about through my own experiences, which is Surf Lifesaving Western Australia, and obviously the work the volunteers there did to assist me was incredible, and I think all beachgoers somewhat take for granted the volunteers that keep our beaches safe. So trying to raise awareness and funds for that, and also Spinal Cure Australia, who are doing some amazing work and research into trying to actually cure paralysis with the aim of trying to people who are wheelchair bound get them up and walking again, with some positive results already. So that's incredible. So to follow that, there's information on my website, www.project7in4.com. There's a live tracker there, so people can actually follow me live time as I climb the mountains, and there's a portal there to be able to donate to as well.
Well, best of luck. It's been such a privilege to chat to you today. I think what you're doing is incredible, and I look forward to seeing how the next couple of months for you go. Best of luck from all of us here listening to ABC Radio. Great to talk to you, Steve.
Thank you very much, Di. It's been an absolute pleasure.